The sun shone brightly over the Australian sky as Elon Musk's private jet touched down at a small airport in the country's interior. It was a grand moment. Musk was there to inaugurate a revolutionary sustainable battery project designed to provide clean and uninterrupted energy to rural and remote communities. The event drew a crowd. Journalists, environmental activists, and local onlookers gathered to see the visionary who had transformed the world with his futuristic ideas. At the ceremony, Elon presented the project with his usual confidence. He explained how his batteries would help combat energy instability in remote areas, reducing dependence on fossil fuels and providing affordable energy for all. The crowd applauded enthusiastically, and the press captured every word. But for Elon, that moment was just another step in his long journey to save the planet. He didn't feel ecstatic or fulfilled. For him, there was always something bigger to be done, and this relentless pursuit left him emotionally empty. As people celebrated the success of the inauguration, Elon felt a pang of disconnection. He was at the peak of his career, leading the global transition to a sustainable future, but deep down, he felt isolated. No matter how admirable his work was, his personal life often seemed mechanical and predictable. It was as if, in his constant race to change the world, he had left behind the simple pleasure of experiencing the present moment. When the ceremony ended, Elon dismissed his security team and declined invitations to dinners and gala events. He wanted a moment to himself. He decided that before returning to his duties, he would explore the vast Australian landscapes alone. He rented a Tesla Model X from one of the local facilities and drove off with no destination, just to feel the wind, the silence, and the freedom he always sought. The road unfurled like a grey ribbon between the vast golden plains, dotted with eucalyptus trees gently swaying in the wind. The Tesla glided almost silently, as if it were an extension of the environment, while Elon contemplated the landscape. It was a stark contrast to the noisy routine of his offices and factories. There, surrounded by the song of birds and the distant sound of kangaroos hopping through the bushes, he felt a calm he hadn't experienced in a long time. The horizon seemed infinite, tinged with orange and purple by the setting sun. He had no set destination, but there was something inexplicable about that moment, something that seemed to guide him. Musk began to wonder if this journey, beyond being an escape, could bring some deeper meaning. It was as if the universe, which he so often spoke about in his interplanetary projects, was preparing something special. Driving for hours, he entered an even more remote region where nature seemed untouched. There was a sense of vastness and mystery in the air, an almost spiritual connection with the surrounding environment. Despite his fatigue, he didn't want to stop. Something inside him said he should keep going. He didn't know what it was, but he felt that around the next bend, his life would change forever. The day was already fading when Elon Musk drove down a deserted road, surrounded by the shadows of eucalyptus trees, casting long silhouettes on the asphalt. The Tesla Model X moved silently, and the only sound was the distant song of nocturnal birds beginning to fill the space left by the day. The sky, tinged with orange and purple, transformed the landscape into something almost surreal. He felt completely disconnected from everything, a feeling that both frightened and calmed him. Suddenly, something motionless in the middle of the road caught his attention. At first it looked like a fallen branch or a piece of log, something common on that type of rural road. But as the Tesla approached, Elon realized that it had a strange shape, almost like a body. He instinctively slowed down, feeling a chill run down his spine. It was an animal, pulling the car over to the side of the road. Elon got out slowly, his heart beating faster than he expected. At that point, the silence was absolute, except for the faint sound of his boots on the asphalt. As he approached, the shape became clearer. It was a koala, small, motionless, and clearly injured. Elon knelt down, examining the animal carefully. The faint light of dusk revealed the signs of exhaustion in the koala. One of its paws was covered in dried blood, and its body trembled slightly. It was still breathing, but so weak that it didn't even try to move. When Elon reached out his hand, the small animal opened its eyes but had no strength to react. At that moment, something inside Elon broke. He, who had dedicated his life to solving the world's biggest problems, felt completely helpless in front of this small, fragile creature. A wave of compassion washed over him, followed by a sense of desperation. He knew that without immediate help, the koala wouldn't survive. Gently, Elon took off his jacket and wrapped it around the animal, trying to provide warmth and protection. "It's going to be okay," he murmured, almost as if he was speaking to a child. Despite never having dealt with a koala before, he knew he had to act quickly. He placed the small marsupial on the back seat of the Tesla, making sure it was safe and comfortable. As he drove, Elon kept an eye on the koala through the rearview mirror. The animal remained motionless, breathing with difficulty. The road seemed endless, and the emptiness of the landscape only increased his anxiety. To ease the tension, he started talking to the koala, as if trying to soothe it. "You know, I've never done anything like this before, right? But I'm good at solving problems, and you're the most important problem I have right now." He smiled, slightly, though the lump in his throat remained. The tension grew with each passing minute. The sun disappeared completely over the horizon, and the darkness of night took over. Elon tried to use the GPS to find the nearest veterinary clinic, but the signal was weak. He drove almost blindly, his heart racing and his eyes fixed on the road. With each turn he hoped to find some sign of civilization, but all he saw was darkness and endless trees. Fatigue began to set in, but he knew he couldn't give up. Every now and then he looked at the koala and wondered how something so vulnerable could survive in such a harsh world. "I build rockets that go to Mars," he thought. "But here I am trying to save a koala, and this seems like the hardest thing I've ever done." Finally, he spotted a small sign indicating a town 20 kilometers away. The relief was immediate, but the challenge was far from over. The GPS failed again, and Elon had to rely solely on instinct and intuition to find the town and, hopefully, a veterinary clinic. The minutes stretched into an eternity. Each time the koala let out a weaker sigh, the fear of losing the race against time grew. He started to consider improvising a shelter for the animal until dawn, but nights in the Australian outback could be treacherous, with temperatures dropping rapidly. "No, I won't leave you here," he whispered to the koala. "We'll find help." When he finally saw the faint lights of a town on the horizon, Elon felt a wave of hope. But he knew time was running out. The koala needed urgent care, and fast. The faint lights of the small town flickered in the distance, a sign of hope amidst the dark night. Elon Musk, with the koala still huddled in the back seat, drove with a mix of relief and urgency. He knew the animal was on the brink, but at least now he had a chance to save it. After a few minutes of driving through the almost deserted streets, he spotted a lit sign with the emblem of a 24-hour veterinary clinic. Elon parked quickly and got out of the car, holding the koala wrapped in his jacket. As he entered the clinic, he was greeted by a surprised receptionist who almost dropped her clipboard upon recognizing who was standing before her. After all, it's not every day that Elon Musk shows up at the door, let alone carrying an injured koala in his arms. "Please, he needs help," Elon said, his voice filled with urgency. The woman blinked, snapping out of her brief shock, and immediately called the medical team. The veterinarians rushed in and took the koala to a treatment room. Elon stood at the entrance for a moment, as if he didn't know what to do with himself. He watched as the team examined the small animal under the cold light of the fluorescent lamps. The minutes seemed to stretch into hours. Finally, one of the veterinarians, a man with gray hair and a calm expression, approached Elon. The koala is dehydrated and has suffered serious trauma to its front paw. There are signs of infection and it is very weak, but it still has a chance, explained the doctor. "We'll start with intravenous hydration and treat the wound, but it will need intensive care over the next few hours." Elon nodded, feeling a weight in his chest. He didn't know how to respond, but one thing was certain: he wasn't going to leave. "I'll stay," he said firmly. "I want to make sure he's okay." The doctor raised his eyebrows, surprised. It wasn't common for someone so busy and renowned to show such dedication. "All right," he said, "we'll keep you informed." The following hours were a long vigil. Elon sat in one of the uncomfortable chairs in the waiting room, his elbows resting on his knees and his hands clasped together. He watched through the glass as the team worked on the koala, cleaning the wound and administering the necessary medications. At some point, the receptionist offered coffee, but he declined. He was too focused to think about himself. As he waited, Elon began to reflect. The image of the koala motionless on the road wouldn't leave his mind. He thought about how incredibly vulnerable wildlife was. Animals like this one faced enormous challenges: deforestation, wildfires, climate change. He knew that the modern world, the same one he helped shape, was also responsible for destroying the habitats of these creatures. That realization hit him like a punch. His technological advancements could change the future of humanity, but what was he doing to protect those without a voice? After what felt like hours, the doctor returned, this time with a slight smile. "He's responding," he said. And for the first time, Elon felt the relief he so desperately needed. It's still early, but he's starting to respond to the treatment. "Would you like to see him?" Elon stood up immediately and followed the doctor to a small room where the koala lay on a table, connected to hydration tubes. Its breathing, once shallow and irregular, was now more stable. As Elon approached, the animal slowly opened its eyes and looked directly at him. It was a weak gaze, but full of life. In that moment, Elon felt something change within him. It was as if this small animal had found a way to connect directly with his soul. He, who had dedicated his life to global issues, realized that sometimes the most significant impact could come from the simplest gestures, like saving a life. "You're going to be okay," Elon whispered with a slight smile. The koala blinked, almost as if it understood. The first lights of dawn were already beginning to brighten the sky when Elon Musk, still at the veterinary clinic, received encouraging news. The koala had remained stable overnight. The small animal, although still weakened, was out of immediate danger. Elon felt a wave of relief, and for the first time since finding the animal, was able to relax. While awaiting more information on the koala's progress, Elon began talking to the veterinarians who had worked tirelessly to save it. The team, made up of passionate professionals, spoke enthusiastically about the challenges of protecting Australian wildlife. They explained how koalas, kangaroos, and so many other species were under constant threat due to human impact. Deforestation destroyed their natural habitats, wildfires, increasingly frequent due to climate change, decimated entire populations, and pollution made their lives even more difficult. One of the veterinarians told a story that deeply touched Elon. Last summer, we lost more than 50 koalas in a fire that swept through this region. Some survived, but they were severely burned. It's devastating to see such fragile animals facing something they can't fight against. Elon listened attentively, absorbing every word. He felt a mix of indignation and sadness, but also something more, a call to action. He knew he had the resources and influence to make a difference. During the conversation, he began to wonder, what if he could use his technology to protect these habitats? What if he could help prevent future tragedies like wildfires? The idea took shape quickly. Elon, who had built his career finding solutions to gigantic problems, saw an opportunity to apply his expertise in sustainability in a completely new way. He began discussing with the veterinarians the possibilities of creating AI-based monitoring systems that could predict and prevent wildfires. Additionally, he talked about using drones equipped with thermal cameras to locate and rescue animals in danger during emergencies. In the heat of the moment, Elon made a promise. I will donate a significant amount to fund conservation projects here in Australia. I want to ensure that you have the necessary resources to protect these incredible animals. The veterinarian's eyes lit up. It was a gesture that could completely transform their work. Over the following days, Elon continued to visit the clinic to monitor the koala's progress. By this point, the small animal had become something of a mascot for the place. The team decided to give it a special name, Ash, in honor of the ashes that frequently cover Australian forests after fires. Elon became particularly fond of Ash. With each visit, the koala seemed stronger, its eyes brighter, and its energy returning bit by bit. "You're a fighter, you know," Elon joked as he watched. The animal ate eucalyptus leaves provided by the team. He felt an inexplicable connection with Ash, as if the small animal had awakened something in his heart that he didn't know was dormant. Elon's constant presence at the clinic caught the attention of one of the staff members, who, without warning, took a photo of the billionaire holding Ash in his arms. In the image, Elon smiled genuinely, while the koala, still wrapped in a blanket, seemed to curiously observe the world around it. When the photo was posted on the clinic's social media, the reaction was immediate. The story of Elon Musk, the tech magnate who had stopped everything to save a koala, touched hearts around the world. The image went viral, accompanied by messages of support and gratitude. People from all corners began sharing the story, inspired by Elon's dedication and Ash's recovery. The hashtag #SaveTheWildlife quickly gained traction, with millions of people committing to doing their part to protect wildlife and threatened ecosystems. Elon, who had never planned to turn this event into something public, found himself at the center of a global wave of support for environmental conservation. He used the opportunity to reinforce his message. If we can build rockets to explore other planets, we can also protect the wildlife of our own. Ash taught me that no life is too small to matter. The sky was still tinged with pink and orange when Elon Musk arrived at the veterinary clinic for one of the most emotional moments of his journey. After weeks of recovery, Ash was finally ready to return to the wild. The veterinarians who had accompanied every step of the small koala's progress explained that it had fully regained its strength and would be reintroduced to a protected area near a national park where other koalas lived freely. Elon, who had visited Ash daily, made sure to be present to say goodbye. Ash was calm in his special carrier, still wrapped in a blanket to keep him comfortable. Elon watched him attentively, and a soft smile crossed his face. He knew that this was the end of a journey, but also the beginning of something much bigger, both for Ash and for himself. The reintroduction was scheduled for dawn, in a dense eucalyptus forest a few kilometers from the clinic. The location was carefully chosen by conservationists as it offered a safe environment far from human threats. Elon, the veterinarians, and a small team of specialists arrived early, accompanied by cameras from an environmental NGO documenting the moment. The scene was spectacular. The soft light of the rising sun bathed the forest in a golden glow, and the fresh scent of eucalyptus filled the air. The vastness of the landscape was a reminder of nature's grandeur, something that not even the greatest human creations could replicate. Elon, standing in the middle of the clearing, felt small before that immensity, and at the same time, deeply connected to it. When the moment came to release Ash, Elon asked to be the one to carry him to the base of a eucalyptus tree. Carefully, he held the small animal in his arms one last time. Ash seemed calm, almost as if he knew he was going home. Elon walked slowly to the tree indicated by the team and, with a mix of apprehension and pride, crouched down to set him on the ground. "It's time to go back to where you belong," Elon said softly, more to himself than to the koala. He watched Ash for a moment, not wanting to let go completely, but knowing it was necessary. Ash, hesitant at first, finally began to move. His small claws gripped the tree trunk, and he started climbing with determination. Each movement seemed like a symbol of resilience, a testament to his struggle to survive. When he reached a high branch, Ash paused, looking down, almost as if he were saying thank you. Then he disappeared among the dense leaves, embraced by the safety of his new home. Elon stood there for a few minutes, looking up at the eucalyptus tree where Ash had disappeared. It was a feeling hard to describe, a mix of joy, relief, and a sense of purpose that he rarely experienced in his professional life. Sometimes, it's the simplest gestures that make the biggest difference, he thought. He realized that saving one life could have as significant an impact as his greatest technological achievements. At that moment, he made a decision. His work would not be just about the future of humanity, but also about the future of all life on the planet. He announced right then to the small team present his next initiative. "We will develop technology that not only builds the human future, but protects nature. We'll start here in Australia, with drones and advanced sensors to monitor and protect natural habitats. This will be just the beginning. The promise was received with enthusiasm by the team, who knew that Elon had the resources and determination to turn words into action. He had changed the world before. Now he seemed determined to do it again, in a way no one expected. As the team began to tidy up the site, Elon took one last look at the forest. The sound of birds filling the air and the scent of eucalyptus reminded him that there was still much to fight for. He got into the car with a new energy, ready to turn that symbolic gesture into a global movement. The days following Ash's release were astonishing. The story of Elon Musk, the tech magnate who had paused his schedule to save a koala, spread across the world like wildfire. The image of Elon holding Ash, captured at the clinic, became a symbol of hope, appearing in articles, TV programs, and social media. The hashtag Save the Wildlife dominated digital platforms, inspiring millions of people to reflect on their impact on the environment. Journalists worldwide highlighted the story as an example of what is possible when people with resources and influence decide to act with compassion. More than an isolated gesture, Elon's action became a catalyst for a global movement to preserve wildlife. NGOs and environmentalists seized the moment to amplify their voices, encouraging governments and companies to commit to protecting natural habitats. The story of Elon and Ash was not just about a billionaire helping an animal in distress. It was about the urgent need to change how we treat the planet and its most vulnerable inhabitants. Months later, Elon kept his promise. He officially announced the creation of the Coalition for Wildlife Preservation, a foundation dedicated to funding technologies and initiatives aimed at preserving threatened habitats. The initial focus was Australia, where drones equipped with thermal cameras began to be used to monitor forests vulnerable to fires and locate animals in danger. Advanced sensors were installed in high-risk areas, capable of detecting temperature changes or signs of deforestation in real time. The foundation also partnered with local NGOs and governments to ensure the preservation of protected zones, educate communities about sustainable practices, and help rescued animals reintegrate into the wild. With Elon's funding, the impact was immediate. Thousands of lives were saved, and devastated areas began to regenerate. Elon's journey with Ash had transformed not only the koala's life, but also his own perspective. He realized that true innovation wasn't just about reaching for the stars, but also about protecting the world beneath them. And so, with renewed purpose, Elon Musk continued to shape the future, one life at a time. The world watched in admiration as Elon used the same vision that had built rockets and revolutionized transportation to protect wildlife. For the first time in years, he felt he was working on something that wasn't just for the distant future, but for the present, for something tangible and essential. In a special interview for a major television program, Elon was asked how that event had changed his perspective. He seemed genuinely reflective, different from the technical and pragmatic tone he usually adopted when discussing his projects. The impact was profound, he said. Ash taught me something that no machine or algorithm could. Saving a life, no matter how small, completely changes your own. I always thought about the future of humanity on a large scale, colonizing Mars, creating sustainable cities. But sometimes, what matters are the individual gestures, the small things you do for those who can't speak for themselves. That's the true future I want to build, one where everyone, humans and animals alike, has a chance. Elon's words resonated deeply with the audience. He, who was already a polarizing figure, became a symbol of compassion and responsibility. The interview was shared millions of times, reinforcing the idea that the power of an individual, especially someone with Elon Musk's influence, could inspire global changes. The culmination of this journey, however, was reserved for a simple and silent moment. Months later, Elon returned to the same forest where Ash had been released. He was accompanied only by a small group of conservationists who helped him find the tree where the koala now lived. From a distance, Elon spotted Ash, resting on a high branch, surrounded by other koalas. The sunlight filtered through the eucalyptus leaves, creating a serene and almost magical scene. Ash seemed completely reintegrated into nature, as if his difficult journey had never happened. Elon remained silent, watching the small koala, feeling a joy that no technological achievement had ever given him. He knew he hadn't just saved a life, he had given himself a new perspective, a new purpose. As he left the forest, Elon looked back one last time at Ash and smiled. He knew at that moment that he had made a difference, and that was all that mattered.